This is for reals now.
Well, welcome to the annual episode where my voice sounds like this. Every once a year, I get a cold, and then it turns into a cough, and then I cough all night, and then I have the voice of a person doing a movie trailer in the 90s.
I think it happens more than once a year between you and me.
Twice a year in a world. Welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast.
Seasonal allergies.
Hello, dig for bones.
I don't think anyone knows that I'm the one cut off your toes and put them in the drawer with the sock.
Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me, as almost always, is wafting wispily and wailing woefully, wandering the world in wistful wavering, wraith-like and washed out as a white willow.
Ooh, it's me, Garth. Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, y'all.
Yeah, that was the moniker again from Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
On the Discord. Join us on Discord.
Yes.
We have lots of fun conversations
Oh,
on
yeah.
Discord. And, of course, Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Support us on Patreon. We like that.
Oh, we do like that. Cody, how have you been, man?
I've been okay, but right now, I got a ghost in my brain.
You've got a ghost in your... I've got a ghost in my throat. I've got a frog ghost.
I'm
And-
doing...
Yeah, you got a... Is it a migraine or a
Yeah,
headache?
it's like a low-level migraine.
I have a question about migraine. So, is a headache different from a migraine?
Yes.
So sometimes you just have a headache.
Yeah.
And that's a distinct sensation.
Yeah, migraine is like on
Okay.
a whole nother level.
Got it. So this is a migraine.
It goes to 11 and then some.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm fortunate. I've never had them. I guess it's a genetic thing.
Yeah, it actually
Oh,
is.
boy.
I was reading up on some of the latest research into it. They used to think, or they thought at one time it had something to do with like vasoconstriction and blood vessels in the brain, and now they find like it actually doesn't. And yeah, they said that there's like they've watched it happen like in I think MRIs and CAT scans, and it's like a cascading effect where like the brain it sweeps the brain and like everything fires. It's like everything just starts going crazy.
Wow.
It's like an overload.
You think that would... It's too bad that translates to an unpleasant sensation, not a pleasant one.
Yeah,
It
it's
depends
like
on
a
how
bad
it's
trip.
firing. Yeah.
I describe
But it's
it-
painful.
Oh yeah, I say it's like the worst hangover you've ever had, but you didn't
Yeah.
do any drinking first.
Lame.
Yeah,
Super lame.
And it also has about 15% of people who have them get what they call auras.
Oh, we'll probably do a whole episode on auras at
Yes.
some point. But not today, folks.
It'll be tangentially come up today.
Oh, great. Okay, well, actually, I should ask because what are we talking about today, Cody?
So today's topic, actually, I got to shout out the By Barbarian. They brought this question up on our monthly Patreon Monster Squadron Hangouts, like maybe a year ago,
Yeah.
possibly longer. And it was just, how ghost work?
How ghosts work?
What is ghost? How ghost work?
Oh, I have so many opinions. I'll give you. Yeah, let's talk about it because, boy, it sure depends on the story.
There's a lot to it, yeah. And
Yeah.
so I figured,
We'll just go through the rules of ghosts.
it's what are the rules?
What are the? I was thinking that. Yeah, what are the
of
rules?
being dead in America?
Garth and Cody turn ghost.
So yeah, let's start at the very top then. What is ghost?
Okay, so a ghost is that would be like the spirit of a person who died, or the soul of a person who died, spirit, soul, and they're floating around still. That would be the loosest definition I could think of.
Yeah,
for
so here's the
ghost.
thing: is that there is almost a universality to the belief of what we could call a ghost. Like, there's every culture, just about, has some version of this.
Right.
The thing is that there is no consensus exactly on what it is, how it works, what it takes to, it's culturally defined. Basically.
This sounds a little bit like, this comes up with other things like how they say, oh, every culture has a dragon.
Yeah.
But the dragons from one culture to another are so vastly different
Yes.
that are you just calling them all dragons when they're really so different that, it's like a catch-all term, like a monk?
Or like when we talk
a
about-
Buddhist monk has nothing to do with a Christian monk.
Yeah, right.
But they're called that. So are these old ghosts if they don't share any characteristics? I don't know.
There's some. So we'll try to look at some commonalities.
Okay.
Very, very ancient belief. This goes back to. Some actually argue that. It predates writing. It's like probably one of the earliest human beliefs that there is, because it's tied to the idea of what happens after you die.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty universal that somebody has some idea in every culture.
I've watched a few lectures by Dr. Irving Finkel. He's a curator at the British Museum who...
Is he the guy with the great big white beard?
Yeah, and he sounds kind of like Terry Pratchett. He has like
great.
the same accent.
Yeah.
So in one of his talks, he was talking about his book that he wrote a couple years ago that is called, I think it's The Origin of Ghosts, or The First Ghosts is what it's called. So basically his expertise, field expertise is ancient Mesopotamia. He's one of the few people who can translate cuneiform tablets.
Wow.
And he makes the argument that as soon as you see signs of any kind of belief in an afterlife, what he means is like burial of the dead. He's like, every culture disposes of the body somehow. And some of the oldest forms is you just bury them. We have burials of like Neanderthals, for example.
Okay.
And so it's like not just Homo sapiens that are doing this. And even some animals exhibit things that kind of can be construed as like burial practices. He brings up elephants that will throw leaves on top of other dead elephants.
I didn't know about that. Wow. Huh.
Yeah, elephants have
I've heard of elephant graveyards.
Elephants seem to be sentient enough that they have a concept of death, that dead thing was my friend. And they do displays that could be considered like mourning and respect for the dead. It's very interesting.
Wow.
But he argues that as soon as people start burying things with a body, that implies like, well, why are you burying them with objects? Well, because something that made them a person has survived after death, and they need these things for later.
Could be one reason.
Right, that could be. So if you use that kind of argument, it's like, okay, so this idea of there's something that happens to you individually after you die is very, very old.
Yeah.
And that becomes archetypical because it's so far back in our human past, in ancestral past, that it's ingrained in all humans. It is like part of our basic hardware. I like to bring up that idea a lot, that the human brain is just a piece of equipment with software. And a lot of that software is software updates occur through culture. There's cultural updates that happen.
We're all updated with memes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's like we all share the same hardware, and that's why you have archetypes around the world, cultural archetypes that show up, is because we have the same pile of meat, basically, with which to make sense of our world.
Yeah.
And so it's only natural that we're going to arrive at certain common conclusions shaped by our environment.
Yeah, and regardless of what culture you are, you could start civilization from scratch, and people will start to notice that people are dying, and wow, what happens after you die?
Yeah.
You're naturally going to either decide you don't know or that you do know, but there will be some idea about it. Yeah.
And so we can start from that base, like, okay, every culture has some concept about what happens after death.
Yeah.
Now, does everybody become a ghost or what? That's where we start getting, it seems like there are maybe 4 broad categories.
Oh, okay.
That could be said to happen after you die.
Okay.
1, nothing. You just
Okay.
cease to exist. 2, a part of you goes somewhere, either heaven or a hell, or you wander the earth as a ghost, maybe. 3, reincarnation. You just keep coming back.
Right.
And then the 4th one that isn't as common, but is present.
I can't think of a 4th one.
Well, there's one. Okay, so there's this idea that actually what you perceive as your self-identity and your soul does not exist. It is merely a fraction of some greater whole. And when you die, you just kind of return back to that whole.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that's what they call
that would be distinct from the number 1.
Yeah, so we've talked in the past about animism.
Yeah.
The belief that everything has a soul. Then there's animatism. And
I've never heard of
animatism,
this.
animatism is like the
Animatism.
other side where it's like not everything has an animate, distinct soul. Like it has spiritual essence, but not all of it is uniquely individual.
Okay.
It's almost like the Force. There's just this vague spirit. I think the anthropologist who came up with the idea of animatism, he was basing a lot of it on his observations of Polynesians and the concept of something they call mana.
Oh, I've heard of
Which is
that,
not
yeah.
just, Magic the Gathering. People like, oh, I know mana. It's like, no, it's something different. But it's like this innate spiritual presence. And so the fourth option is that, like, you're only basically...
This is a vacation from the great big spirit.
Yeah, it's the idea that, you are the universe experiencing itself, right?
Yeah.
And so that's like the fourth option.
I kind of like that one the most, actually.
But going to the idea that you go somewhere when you die.
Right.
Is the ghost. The term ghost, like the word ghost, I think it's Germanic, Indo-European, it goes back, but there's lots of different versions of... We just use that term now as like our catch-all for like that, like you said with dragon. That's like catch-all for the phenomenon. In ancient Greek, I think it was in Greek, it's where we get the word spirit. And spirit actually means breath.
Oh.
The spirit is your breath. Going to Abrahamic religions, Adam is created out of dirt by God and then imbued with life through the breath, the spirit of the Lord. He breathes life into it. So some of these early monotheistic religions, because you have the Abrahamic religions, but they are also built on the back of even older ones, like the Mesopotamians. Their idea of what a ghost was, its most basic was, well, it looks like wind. Looks like
it
breath.
Looks like wind.
Because
like
when
that.
you die, that breath of life leaves you.
Oh, okay.
And that is the essence that's left over.
Little gusts of wind everywhere. Those are actually little souls. That
Going back to Irving Finkel in his Mesopotamian studies, there's a clay tablet that explains what to do if your home is haunted by the ghost of, say, your mother-in-law. Specifically.
Mother-in-law, okay.
Yeah. He likes to point out that, the idea that ghosts were real was just taken for granted by the culture at the time. Like, there was nobody out there who was like, they're not real. Like, no, it was just an accepted part of life. And in their worldview, to become a ghost, and this is something that'll carry on as we move this conversation forward to our more present day, is this idea that first you have to dispose of the dead properly.
Yeah.
If you do not do it right, there's certain things you have to do to basically lock the ghost or the spirit in the underworld when you bury it. If you don't do that properly, they can come back. Also, if you die through violent means,
oh yeah,
if it's through an act of violence, or even childbirth counts as well, you are more likely to become a ghost. And this is where we get the idea of unfinished business. Is that like, well, you died suddenly in the middle of something else, and so there's unfinished business.
You're not ready to move on to the next plane of reality.
So this clay tablet tells the story, essentially, of there's a home, the mother-in-law dies, she comes back as a ghost, she's restful, making their lives awful, because ghosts can do things to you. They can make you sick, they can influence your world, which is kind of weird because they are no longer part of it, but they can influence it. So the solution that the exorcist comes up with is, your mother-in-law's upset because she wants a man. And so we're going to make...
Are they going to kill somebody?
No, we are going to make an effigy, a doll of the perfect man,
and
then
great.
Symbolically marry her to it, and then bury that.
That's great. That's a really good solution.
And so the tablet has an illustration of this. There is a like stylized man with his hands bound being dragged along by a little short woman. But here's the interesting thing is that the image of the man is in very high detail. The image of the woman is basically just a traced outline because she's a ghost.
Oh, yeah.
She's not as solid or as real. So even that idea is
present. So they were drawing ghosts as amorphous blobs back in Mesopotamia.
So you're either a ghost or you could be a demon. We've talked in the past about their belief in demons. The Mesopotamians talk about migraines. That's why at the top I said I have a ghost in my head. It was the idea that when you sleep, ghosts could enter through your ears get inside your body and cause all sorts of problems like headaches. And I've often wondered, like, well, how do people in the past react when they'd have a migraine? Because it's a genetic thing. So people in the past got migraines.
Yeah, imagine if you were superstitious and didn't have any better explanation, and you got like splitting headaches sometimes.
Now, some people have pointed to the ancient practice of trepanation. You know trepanation?
Is that where they like bleed out your brain? They like
cut a
put
hole
in the skull?
Yeah, cut a hole in the skull. We have this is evidenced in archaeological record around the world going back a very long time.
It like relieves pressure.
And there seems to be, I mean, people survived this. It was a thing. They would like cut away part of your skull with obsidian and work their way through to cut through the thing, your brain case. And then people actually survived because we have evidence of these wounds healing. Now there's this idea that, they were trying to release spirits that were in the head. We actually do not have any evidence that is why they were doing it. This was actually come up with as a hypothesis because there were young children's skulls that were found to have had this done to them.
Wow.
But there didn't seem to be any other evidence of severe head trauma that would necessitate it. So the idea is, well, they weren't doing this for no reason. Maybe they were trying to get the ghosts out of the head.
Right. Well, and with an adult or somebody who's a little older than a kid who has migraines, they might request it. But if it's a kid...
Yeah.
I guess kids get... I mean, you got migraines as a kid?
Actually, it didn't start until, like, I was a teenager. But there are kids who do get it.
Okay.
There's people who sometimes they get it early in life and then it goes away and vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real fun.
Yeah.
I think I did have real bad headaches when I was a kid. But the first time as an adult when I could distinctly say, this is a migraine, was pretty unsettling and crazy.
It surprised you?
Yes,
snuck up.
I was at work and I started to see actual visual anomalies.
Oh my gosh.
And then audio anomalies where all the volume in the world just disappeared. Like I went deaf. And
that could be an air pressure thing.
And then it was just like a static sensation. Like it was sound like I was listening to static. And then all of a sudden the volume came back to an extreme level and it was painful and like everything. Yeah.
Did your ears pop during that?
I don't remember them popping.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then getting very disoriented, dizzy, nauseous, all the signs of possession.
Yeah.
Right.
If you were to get trepanated, what part of your brain of your skull would you want to have a hole in?
I can tell you that the two areas that hurt the most when I have a migraine is with the occipital region, which is the back of the head, where
they plug the matrix in.
Yeah, where the neck meets the base of the skull, and then in my temples. Now, the actual word migraine is, if you do the etymology of it, it basically means
migrate.
No, it actually means like one hemisphere of the brain because it is that it usually is coming from one direction.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
But I've experienced it from all directions. Yeah, usually when it's happening, though, I start to think to myself, hey, maybe I should go get my fucking power drill and just drill a screw into my temple. That might relieve the pressure.
It might. Oh, my gosh.
Okay, now still in the ancient world, the Egyptians, right?
Yes.
Now, some people say if you're a ghost, it's because your soul is still here on Earth. To which I would counter, or the Egyptians would ask, which soul? Because according to the Egyptians, you have 5 souls.
5?
There are 5 souls. There's like, I can't remember the names of the Ba, the Ka.
The Ra?
No.
Oh, that was a god.
Yeah. Ba, Ka. Anyway.
5 souls. Okay.
Yeah, 5 souls. And they all go to various places.
Are they located in different parts of the body? Like Katras, kind of?
They kind of are, yeah.
Okay.
There's a soul that's in your heart. There's one that's in your head.
Uh-huh.
One of the souls is like a symbol, is your name. Your name is your soul.
Oh,
So the royal cartouche, when the names of kings are depicted in hieroglyphics, they're surrounded by a circle that is called a cartouche. That cartouche is a symbolic magic that is protecting their name soul inside. That's how we know they're important, because their name is in this special circle.
Wow.
And as long as your name survives, that part of your soul survives. Therefore, Tutankhamun,
He's
Ramses,
still got one.
that part of their soul is still alive.
Because we remember them.
Remember me. So here's a point I want to make about ghosts, though. Ghosts are a cultural experience. We've explained that seem to be there's a universality to the belief of something like a ghost, but how it represents itself is different depending on the culture. And that is one reason why I would be inclined to say they do not exist. Because if it's actually the same thing, it should be manifested in the same way everywhere. But it does not.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It's as if saying gravity works this way in Oxford.
Right.
But if I went somewhere else, gravity doesn't work the same way. Now, I know, let me stop it right here. Yes, I know there's the gravitational anomaly in the Indian Ocean where it does appear that the force of gravity is slightly weaker in one part of the Indian Ocean. And scientists are still trying to figure this out.
Really?
Yeah, there's a place where actually the sea level is different because like the expression of gravity is different. So
What?
it's not pulling. Yeah. It's like actually like 3 feet higher or lower than the surrounding areas.
That's pretty significant. Wow.
So, yes, I know that there's parts where the gravity is a little bit different, but for
We're
the
gonna move
nature
on
of
from
argument,
that.
the nature of the argument is that there are
I'm
certain
gonna have a hard
forces,
time moving on from that fact.
there are forces of nature and physics that we're like, no, we know that is a constant.
Yeah, you're saying if ghosts were real, they would kind of be the same all over the world.
Yeah, except that they reflect the culture in which they exist, and as time progresses, they also change depending on the time in which you're experiencing them because the culture has shifted.
Okay.
So, go back 50 years and nobody's talking about shadow figures, really. That's not a thing.
Right. Those
Then
are
it
those things you see, and this is where I reveal my ignorance of anything to do with pretty much the topic of this show as far as the internet goes. So shadow figures, is that like I've seen that on YouTube, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the idea that, that's what the ghost is you'll see a dark space,
Okay.
negative space that moves and behaves as if it's an entity.
But that's a new phenomenon.
It's
that's
a newer,
a newly noticed
It seems
thing.
more widespread.
Right,
You didn't
okay.
find it everywhere.
Got it.
It's as we share information through the internet, this is becoming memeified. Mm-hmm. And so now it's actually is becoming more homogenous, where it's because everybody's like, well, it has to look like that other thing I saw.
It's stabilizing in the culture. Okay.
Right. Does that mean ghosts are becoming more real? No. It just means that
Not
people are getting
necessarily.
a more... Yeah, there are more influences on each other. After the movie The Ring came out,
Oh, yeah.
suddenly you start seeing ghost evidence that is young girl, long black hair, white dress.
Oh,
Now,
yeah, that's a trope.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of a woman in a white dress, that is its own... We're going to do an episode on that. That's its own folk belief that is also an archetype that is found worldwide. The ghost... We talked a little bit about
La Llorona.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That there is this pre-existing thing. But I mean specifically... The little girl from The Ring
Right.
starts showing up everywhere
Yeah.
in supposed real things. It's like, well, it's because people now have this new
Yeah,
thing to pull
it's
from.
a evocative image.
Slender
that-
Man.
Yeah.
Did not exist. But now there are people who are so convinced that he's real, even though you can
Didn't
look at the
somebody
moment.
kill somebody?
Attempted.
Attempted. A few years ago.
Attempted homicide. I ask you, what is that? Do they give Nobel Prizes for attempted chemistry? Where was I?
Well, we were talking about the cultural differences between ghosts and
Yeah.
that they're culturally...
It's a cultural experience.
Yeah, it's a cultural experience.
And also through time, they start to change. So, like, as you get more into the Victorian era, the role of the ghost starts to change. That's when we start seeing
Seances.
and spiritualism starts shaping
Right.
it. One thing... I know I seem like I'm jumping all over, but that's kind of how this whole ghost business
That's what
works.
this episode's going to be like, everybody.
And like I said, I got a ghost in my brain right
Yeah, you're doing great, by the way.
now. With the belief in ghosts, it presupposes the belief in an afterlife. More or less.
At least enough afterlife that you can be a ghost.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? Which then
Yeah.
begs the existence of a definable, discernible soul. There's a part of you that is you that
Yeah.
survives after the meat bag rots away.
Yeah, I mean, we could get caught up in semantics with all of this. Like, what is a ghost? What is
Yeah.
a soul? But yeah, it would be a thing about you that remains.
Yeah.
Call that what you want. We'll call it a soul in this conversation.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that would have to be something...
And that then...
Yeah, that would have to exist if there
And
are
as I've been
ghosts.
saying, culture, religion is part of that. So it's
Sure.
also religiously expressed. Which religion is right?
Oh, well, obviously. No, I don't know. I
See,
mean,
but
what do
these
you
are the
mean?
questions that you have to start
Yeah.
thinking about when you start thinking about the broader implications of ghosts.
Oh, okay. So, okay, I see what you're doing. So you're trying to say, okay, let's see how we could work out whether ghosts are real, and if it is going to be religiously based. Not all the religions could be equally right about
Yes.
ghosts. So
Right.
that means one religion has to be true.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I mean, this is an American God
You're-
situation.
yeah.
Although,
You're doing a logic.
jumping
thing
further
here.
ahead,
Yeah.
like I was talking about how things that weren't really present a decade ago or 20 years ago that have gained mainstream attention within the paranormal community in the last probably decade and a half, 2 decades, they'll like to talk about a thing called a tulpa. And
I've never
that's the
heard of
new
this.
explanation.
What's a tulpa?
A tulpa is based on a Tibetan belief
Huh.
that essentially it's the American Gods rule. If you believe in something, it'll gain an existence.
Oh, okay. So with that model of the universe, you could actually have all these different cultural ghosts living harmoniously on the earth.
Right? But if
And-
our brains
yeah.
have that ability,
Yeah, if we could control the material world through our imagination.
then that should be happening all the fucking time.
Well, maybe.
Get enough kids in a room, Santa Claus should fucking appear.
Yeah, I see the argument you're making, but that's not necessarily true. Maybe you have to just wish way harder than any, There'd
Then,
have to be
who's
other
the
things.
arbiter that decides whose wishful thinking is more important than somebody else's?
Well, I don't know. See, I've got to play devil's advocate.
I know
here.
you do.
But-
I'm backing you into a
but-
corner.
Yeah,
and
no,
I'm
I
probably
mean-
using some really bad rhetoric.
Well, yeah, no. The rhetoric you're using is just like, well, if that's the case, then this would happen. It's like, well, we don't know the rules. So
Yeah.
maybe a million things have to line up that we're unaware of, and that's why it happens rarely. And we just don't know what those things are.
We think it happens rarely, but popular culture would have you believe it happens all the time. Let me explain. 2023 study, or a survey, a YouGov survey of 1,000 American adults, found that 2 out of 5 Americans believe ghosts exist.
Really?
43% say they have personally experienced a ghost.
A ghost?
Yes.
Specifically. Wow. That's higher than I would have expected.
41%? Oh, sorry, I had that backwards. 43% believed in the existence of demons.
Oh.
40 specifically demons. 41% said ghosts,
Okay.
and that they had encountered a ghost. Fewer than that, only 9% believe in werewolves, vampires 8%.
There's always that 10% threshold where
Yeah.
they'll believe in any, 10% of people will believe in anything.
I'm sorry, I said this is 2023. I meant 2021 is when this was done. Women more likely to believe in ghosts than men,
By a large margin?
50% to 31%.
Oh, that's pretty significant. Huh.
Education level does appear to play a role in this.
I can see that.
That if anybody postgraduate education amongst people who had a postgraduate degree, only 28% believed in ghosts, whereas people who only had a high school education were 41% likely to believe in ghosts. So I'm just pointing out that if that much of the population believes they're real and have experienced them, then they should be common enough that we could actually collect some real scientific data.
Okay, well, devil's advocate again. Maybe they're incredibly rare, and most people who think they see them aren't seeing them, but that doesn't mean that every once in a while they aren't seen.
Well, yeah, because the explanations for what could cause somebody to see a ghost
Yeah.
are incredibly common.
So it could be that it's usually not a ghost, but every once in a while it is.
Every once in a while, maybe one slips out. Well, let's talk about Einstein for a second.
Oh, I'd love to.
The conservation of energy.
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
Well, okay. So energy and matter are interchangeable. So energy and matter can't be created or destroyed, but they can be converted from one to the other. A nuclear bomb is converting a little bit of material into energy. But you could go the other way. But you can't. Matter can't just disappear
Has
and
to
go
somewhere.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's conservation. The universe conserves all of its stuff.
So that's a thing that gets brought up as ghost justifications. Scientific. People you will actually see people claiming that Einstein proved the existence of ghosts.
Well, now, okay, does that tie into the whole dead bodies weigh 8 ounces less than live
there's an
bodies?
explanation for that too.
Okay, well, because I mean, if that's the case, then when someone dies, if part of them leaves, they should weigh less.
And that was tested by, I forget the name of the scientist, a guy back in, I think, the 1930s, who actually was weighing people before and after they died, and I thought it was
maybe
grams.
it was 12 ounce or 12 grams.
It's grams. I think it's like 20 grams.
Yeah,
which is less than
that
an
would be
ounce.
a heavy ghost.
Yeah.
12 ounces. Yeah,
And
We'll go with
he was like,
grams.
"Wow, this seems to happen after somebody dies. That must be the weight of the soul. Let me check it. Let me weigh a dog, and then let me kill the dog and weigh the dog. Does the dog have a soul? Well, I don't think dogs have a soul because in his Judeo-Christian worldview, they do not. And sure enough, the dog weighed the same after it died. Therefore, the human soul, because humans have a soul, has to weigh, I think it was like 20 grams.
But he also weighed humans and noticed the difference.
Yes, that was the difference he noticed. But there seems to be an explanation. A lot of things happen to you physically after you die. One thing that is...
Maybe you dry out a little pretty quickly.
Well, here's the
That'd be
thing
my
that a lot of
guess.
people would be surprised to find out. And I got to bring it up now, and I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. But when you die, you have a temperature spike. You always think of the cold corpse.
Oh.
That happens after a while. Initially, the body temperature rises.
Is it like because the...
There's a bunch of cellular activity.
Yeah, I
that
was just
starts
thinking
kicking in.
all of your body is constantly being barraged with germs and things that
Yeah.
are trying to kill you, and then your immune system's always fighting it off. But at the point that you die and your blood stops flowing, all those things are going to
Bacteria.
take over, and
Yes.
you would have a lot of chemical reactions
yes.
at the beginning of decomposition, I guess.
You also lose fluids and solids when you die.
Right.
A lot of the fluid. I mean, there's you shit
You
yourself.
shit yourself when you die, yeah, you
because
lose
the muscles
bowel
relax.
control.
Yeah, right. But also, your pores through which you sweat, a lot of excess moisture comes out.
Yeah.
A dog does not sweat.
Oh, that's a great explanation for the dude's discovery. Yeah.
Do dogs not have souls or just not have sweat glands?
Their souls come out through their feet, through the pads of their feet.
Their souls come out through their souls.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So,
I like the idea that you sweat your soul out when you die. Yeah.
but back to the Einstein thing. People will say that, well, your brain is you're an electrical device.
Yeah. It's
when-
pretty low wattage. I mean,
Yeah.
you're
But
not...
when you die, that energy that is you has to go somewhere, right? And it does.
Of course, yeah. Nothing gets destroyed, but it's probably just in heat. I mean,
It exits through the heat.
yeah. That's usually where anything goes.
I also think there's a huge misconception about what the human body is. People think we are a battery. We are not a battery.
No one thinks we're a battery.
Well, that's the idea, is that you have energy stored in you. It has to go somewhere. You are maybe a capacitor would be a better thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
But you are not. You are actually the generator that through caloric processes generates the electrical charge. When you die, it's not like there's a nuclear reactor that's got a bunch of stored up energy. Somebody just turns off the generator.
It's more like a car dying.
Yes, it's like you have the energy on an as needed basis. Your
Yeah.
body will burn calories to make it as it needs it.
Yeah,
it doesn't store it all
fuel
up,
and the gas
other
tank.
than fat stores.
Right.
So there isn't this like huge, like you said, it's a low wattage. The electrical charges that go through your body.
Yeah,
is
the
pretty
brain
low.
does have an electrical component, but it's not like a whole lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to go somewhere.
Right.
So yeah, when you die, that's the conservation of energy thing is not an issue, because
Okay.
most of you exists right now as calories in the form of meat.
Yeah.
That will be it will be transferred to something else. Something else will consume that, either through the ground when you're buried, or through
Worms.
cremation when you're burned, and all that fuel burns
that
up.
rapid oxidation, that's
Yeah,
that's not that is being that actually is material that being
Yeah.
turned into energy
Yes.
through heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
You
when
weigh a lot
when
less
cremate,
after
if you cremate
cremation.
someone, do you burn their ghost?
Oh, that's a good question.
And then physicists have weighed in on this issue, notably the scientists at the Large Hadron Collider.
They have weighed in on this, huh?
They actually have, this is from an article in Futurism, which is quoting Dr. Brian Cox, who works on the Hadron Collider. For people who don't know, that is the largest particle accelerator in the world. I think it's 26 miles long.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which then I started to think about that, like, wait a minute, but we've talked about in the past how if you fire a bunch of photons through a slit, you don't know where it's going to go. So how do they ever get the two photons, or the two particles to slam into each other?
That is a great question, and that is above my pay grade, but they figured it out, because they do it all the time.
They shoot a whole bunch of them.
I think actually that's probably what it is, but
Okay.
no, they're precise about it, because they know what hit, so...
So here's the quote he said while being interviewed on the Infinite Monkey Cage radio show for BBC. He says, if we want some sort of pattern that carries information about our living cells to persist, i.e. ghost, then we must specify precisely what medium carries that pattern and how it interacts with the matter particles out of which our bodies are made.
Oh.
We must, in other words, invent an extension to the standard model of particle physics that has escaped detection at the Large Hadron Collider. That's almost inconceivable at the energy scales typical of the particle interactions in our bodies. He's there with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who then asks him, wait, let me get this straight. Are you suggesting that there is no such thing as ghosts as an actual opinion of the of CERN? And Dr. Cox says, yes, that is the opinion of CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, that if there was a particle that would allow for all the qualities of a ghost to exist, if there was such a thing, they probably would have found it by now. Because here's the thing, now we get back to what are the rules.
Right.
Ghosts, they're immaterial because they can pass through walls and turn invisible.
But they can still affect...
But they can knock things over
yeah.
and be seen and captured on photograph, which implies that there has to be light generated to be captured.
Or that photons interact with them.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Also, if they are so transmissible, why do you always hear their footsteps? In a haunted house or a ghost video, it's always, oh, do you hear that? Someone's walking in the building.
Creaking.
Yes, someone's walking.
Yeah.
But are they physical or are they not? How are they both?
Was that a rhetorical question? I'm not sure I can give
I
you an
guess that
answer.
is, yeah. That's what I'm saying is like, you have to see the thing about science. And some people might say, well, you can't prove this with science. Well, in that case, you're dealing with religion and magic. And we can't really get into that. But if a ghost is an actual real thing that should be part of our
should be measurable.
It's part of our natural world and the way the universe apparently works. It should be measurable and also testable through scientific processes, which implies repetition and controlled experiments. And we just don't have
Ghosts
that.
are just all over the place. You try to pin them down, and the rules change. So how are you ever going to measure it?
Well, that's the thing. Is the goalpost keeps getting moved. And that's part of that cultural and change of shift of what ghosts are. So, the goalpost is always going to be moved to suit the evidence that's collected.
I guess ghosts just they fall out of the world of science, and they're in the realms of love and all those intangibles.
I had something for that. I fucking lost it.
I'm trying to get poetic.
I'm trying to remember the name of the, she is a neuroscientist, and it was a conversation about the existence of the human soul. I think this was on NPR.
Oh.
And she said, well, I can tell you that if I opened up your head, I could poke you in a part of your brain that effectively would delete the person you are now. What does that say about the soul?
The soul's right there. By poking it, it squirts out.
Like Phineas Gage, right?
Yeah.
Brain damage changed his personality. Did that alter his soul?
Yep.
What is the soul? We're going to get... I need to take a moment, and we're going to get into some more of the rules and explanations for why we experience ghosts and what that all means. And then we're also going to... Is it a Garth's Corner?
Oh, yeah. We'll do a very casual Garth's Corner. I was thinking we could talk about a few different movies and what the rules are there. And
okay.
From movie to movie, how different it is.
All right, well, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to try to lure this ghost out of my brain through some kind of offering. I hear they like beer.
I have I have a screw gun. Do you... Oh. What size bit do you want? Would bigger be worse?
It's not so much a bit. It's one of those little things that like they cut holes. They're like the round.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
What are those called?
I don't remember what those are called. I have a Dremel tool too.
Oh, okay, well
we could just sand your skull down. It'd probably be a little bit easier.
Anyway, we'll figure this out. We're gonna go drill some skulls.
All right.
I mean, dig for bones.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New Year, new laugh. We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers.
Do you like beer?
Of course you do.
Do you like good food?
You better believe it.
Then we have the show for you.
It's the Hoppy Trails Podcast.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis, and on each episode of Hoppy Trails, we invite you to come along on our journey to explore craft beverages and the foods that accompany them.
Check out Hoppy Trails on hoppytrailspod.com or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Instagram at hoppytrailspod or reach out to hoppytrailspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Come travel the Hoppy Trails with us, and remember to always say yes to the hoppy ending.
Cheers.
Oh boy, so I did some surgery, and I think Cody might be better. How do you feel?
Well, the bleeding's stopping. So
Good.
That's good.
Yeah, that cork has worked pretty well. That came out of Pinot Grigio.
Yeah,
so
I think I can taste it.
Can you taste
it's
it?
pressing against that part of my brain.
Can you taste it with your older senses?
I also smell burnt toast, but I think that's something else.
Welcome back, everybody. We just drilled for some
Ghosts in my brain.
pockets of pressure in Cody's brain here, and we're back.
And we're gonna see,
What are the more of the rules?
What are the rules?
of ghosts?
Yeah, ghosts. What is ghost? How ghosts work?
Yeah. We've pretty well established the edges of science and the frustration of science not being able to pin down the rules. So
Yeah.
let's talk about all the different cultures and their versions of rules, I guess.
Unfinished business in the violent death from the Mesopotamians comes up again.
Okay, well, let's jump from there because you were already talking about that.
Yeah, well, the idea that violent death necessarily leads to unfinished business, therefore ghost, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's look at some numbers here.
Cold, hard numbers.
Numbers. Statistics. We're going to focus just on the United States. This is a 2008 article, so these stats might be a little outdated.
Yeah.
But the point still stands, because the point it's going to make means that, if anything, then in 2008 we should have been seeing more ghosts. Because at this time, there were an estimated 30,000 homicides per year in America at the time.
Oh, and a homicide would definitely lead to somebody
Was
being
violent,
a ghost,
right? Now,
'cause
here's
it's
the thing is that
violent,
in 2002, homicides were less likely to be solved than they had been in, say, 1976. At a rate of 79% of homicides in the 70s were solvable, but in 2002, only 64% had been solved. So if you extrapolate that out of that 30,000 homicides in 2008, that'd leave about 11,000 unsolved murders in the United States every year.
And I think you're suggesting that an unsolved murder would even
Well,
make
yeah.
for a ghost more.
Because a ghost would be coming back to say, "Hey, solve
my murder,
yeah,
and
solve
I'll
my
move
murder.
on."
Yeah, or I was murdered here, and there's no justice for me, so here I am as a ghost."
Right.
That's a lot of fucking ghosts every year.
It also implies that the criminal justice system has an influence on what a ghost thinks about things.
Yeah, I guess so. Also, how we should actually also be wondering, like, dude, why are they not solving as many murders? Is it that they were just pinning murders on random people and the science wasn't as bad in the 70s to get a false conviction?
Yeah,
rate?
I would think that they would solve more murders now with better technology, but also maybe the
Although this is-
threshold of
this
you know-
article's almost 20 years old.
Oh, okay, got it.
So, but I guess in 2008, the point would have been there should have been every year 11,000 new ghosts, if that's how a ghost is formed. And then that adds up pretty fucking quick.
Yeah.
It's like 110,000 ghosts over 10
Well,
years.
the ghost might give up after a couple years.
Yeah, what's the shelf life on a ghost? How long does a ghost live?
I guess it's up to the ghost.
Well, there is such thing as an idea of a second death. You
Yeah.
can be dead again.
Well,
in some of these ancient
I think it
beliefs.
was a Shakespearean thing, but I'm sure it came from before that like your body dies and then you die another way when the last person who ever knew you
That's
remembers you. We
yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah,
before.
and Pratchett has a version of that too. You know,
Of course he
no
does.
person is
Of
dead.
course
While their
he
name is
does.
still said, or the ripples they've left in the world still reverberate until the wine she brewed has been drank, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Which goes to that Egyptian idea that as long as the name survives.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people whose names were long since forgotten. Their remains have been lost. So, yeah, I guess they died again, right?
Yeah, Alexander the Great hasn't died yet. We remember his name, right? So,
Yeah.
There you go.
But what is a ghost made out of? Okay, wait. No, actually, no. Let's go to real world. Sorry. Real world things that are explanations for why people see ghosts and how that might relate to what a ghost is, I guess.
Okay.
I know that's really convoluted. And
No, I understood exactly what you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ghosts, we're going to go back to the idea that ghosts are energy, specifically electromagnetic energy.
What other kind is there? Oh, yes, chemical energy.
Yeah.
Whenever I think of energy, I think all electromagnetic. But yeah, heat. But no, well, that's also electromagnetic too.
Is light electromagnetic?
Yeah, light is electromagnetic energy. Yeah.
Okay.
Photons.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what makes up a ghost, right? So basically the same thing as everything else. Which is why you could use, according to modern ghost hunters, an EMF detector. Now, we played with an EMF detector on the upcoming Sequoidea road trip show and got some very interesting results with that in some very unexpected places. That's as vague as I'm going to get.
That's as specific as you're
Yeah,
gonna
I was ready to say. The idea is that electromagnetic fields, which exist,
Oh, definitely.
you know, that they do vary across the globe and can be mapped.
They're very helpful in making podcasts.
Yeah, you know, your cell service, your wireless stuff, Bluetooth, that's all EMF.
Yeah.
So the idea is that ghosts either generate an EMF or they can feed off the electromagnetic fields to then manifest themselves. So if you go into a haunted building...
Oh, so like they're an expression of the already existing electromagnetic field.
Or they are
around.
responsible for it. It's unclear. This is the problem.
Yeah,
is
I
that
see.
nobody can agree on the rules.
Uh-huh.
But they do seem to be of the opinion that if you take an EMF detector, which is a basic piece of hardware because you use it when you're like, say you want to hang a picture and you want to make sure you don't hammer a nail into an electrical conduit, you run one of these against the
And it
wall.
can tell whether there's an electrical field nearby itself.
So they will say, well, you go into an empty building where allegedly there's no more electricity running to this building. It's abandoned. I have my EMF detector. There should be a baseline of 0 because there's no electrical things around. I turn it on and I keep getting spikes, right?
Oh man, there's a cell phone in your pocket.
Now, this is very similar to what happened to us in the show.
Yeah. Of course, we don't know. We did not calibrate our EMF
Yeah.
detector ourselves. We have no idea.
But there are
How that
so
actually
there are
works.
pre-existing electromagnetic fields that do are here
well,
on Earth.
yeah. There's a field everywhere. I mean, you couldn't get away from it if you wanted to.
You know, in the right environment. See, people might say like, well, now you're just saying like, well, if everything goes right, this could happen. Well, you say the same thing about a ghost. If everything goes right, this could happen.
Yeah.
If everything goes right, you could have strong gusts of wind, exciting particulates in the air that might create static electricity or a thunderstorm.
That can just happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's natural stuff
Yeah.
that can happen. Or maybe you're in a building that you think has no electricity, but it actually does, but it's such an old building that the wires aren't shielded properly, and so you get weird, anomalous readings.
Well, and I mean, like radio waves.
Yeah.
Go through everything, and they're
Ghosts are radio
Yeah.
waves. But a
They're
radio
low-
wave
they're-
can't knock over a
they're low
plate.
frequency, but like I mean, there's invisible electricity everywhere. Is
Yeah.
what my point. Yeah.
Even on you, as we've already established, even in the human body. There is a theory that is being tested. I couldn't find any like concrete, like cited, like, oh, well, this is the results. But there have been some theories put forward that maybe people do not see ghosts because ghosts aren't real. But a strong enough electromagnetic field could impact your brain in a way where it can cause you to experience weird things.
Really?
Glitch out your brain.
Wow.
Ever been in an MRI?
No.
I have.
Did you experience
I didn't think
hallucinations from the
only that
electric-
my vision got really wobbly and weird when I was in the
Really?
tube.
Whoa.
Because you were being bombarded with insane levels of magnetic fields
And
that are
that's
imaging your body.
affecting your brain.
Yes.
Wow.
It could, but if that was completely the case, I should have been experiencing weirder things in there than I did. But maybe some people just do. Maybe because I'm a person who doesn't believe in ghosts, I'm not primed to think that I'm going to see weird things.
Well, and you're getting radiation just randomly
Yeah.
going through different parts of your brain. If you had moved your head a millimeter, you might hit a different
Yeah,
part of your brain. I don't know.
And if your ghost is composed of EMF, did the MRI kill my soul and ghost? Could it rip it apart?
I don't know. I mean,
Because here's the thing. A common tool that is used by modern ghost hunters is an EMF pump. They have a little device. It's a little device. The very popular one is cylindrical. It's about like maybe 6-7 inches tall, has an antenna.
It pumps.
And it is that it just creates an electromagnetic field that it just fills the room with. And that then gives the energy to the ghosts, what they could then use to interact with the physical world.
Oh, okay.
If that was true, every MRI room in every hospital should be chock-a-block with visible ghosts, because also, lest we forget, you're in a hospital where people die all the fucking time.
Well, and power stations.
Yeah.
You know, those big, when you're driving down the highway and you see those giant...
yeah, transformers.
Anywhere around a transformer should have ghosts, too.
Yeah.
Lots of electricity
It
around
should just
there.
be attracting ghosts, but
Yep.
it doesn't. Huh. The other explanation that we've discussed many times, pareidolia, which is the human's predisposition to recognize patterns where there are none,
Yeah.
i.e. faces in random images, or even sounds. That's the EVPs, is that you hear things, but it's because you expect to hear a voice, and then
Right.
someplace static, and then usually if you're watching a ghost show, they will have subtitles that tell you what you're supposed to hear, and then that's what you
I
hear.
call that priming the pump a little bit.
Salting the mind.
Salting the mind.
It's, yeah. And we did a whole episode about EVPs that explored that as well. So pareidolia, a big one. An idea that goes all the way back to the 1920s. Carbon monoxide poisoning in your home.
Oh, yeah, that would do it. That was big in the 20s?
Well, it was an idea that somebody started floating around in the 20s as to why people were experiencing ghosts, because this is a time when we still had gas lighting in homes.
Oh, yeah.
Carbon monoxide poisoning was a much more common thing, and people living in haunted houses, maybe.
Sure.
But yeah, we've talked about in Three Bean Dip, we talked about bat squatch.
Oh, yes.
Cryptid bat
I
squatch.
drank the bat squatch beer. I remember
Yes.
that part.
And bat squatch had only ever been seen one time by one person in his pickup truck that stalled out on the road and had a carburetor issue in it that he'd been struggling to fix that whole day. And so the explanation that I
The
came was
cab
like,
was full of carbon monoxide.
yeah, and that's what choked out the motor. Car dies, and then he sees something mundane like maybe, I don't know, a moth or a bat, and his brain goes, whoa, man, because he's tripping balls.
I was, I've been sick for the last couple days, and I took some Benadryl and slept for hours and hours, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I went down to the kitchen, and I went around the outside of the house, and then I was still just on Benadryl, and I opened the sliding glass door, and I looked down, and there's a raccoon. And I'm like, whoa, the raccoon's in the house. And then, like, the raccoon stepped a little bit more into the light, and it was one of the cats. I was like, wow. And I wasn't hallucinating, but
No.
you just see things funny when
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
half awake. Yeah. Carbon monoxide
Carbon
can
monoxide-
totally make a bat squatch.
Another one similar to carbon monoxide, and this is also suggested by Barbarian a while back ago on the Discord, radon. Do you know about radon?
I've heard that there are radon detectors.
Yeah, so radon is a radioactive gas that just happens through the natural decaying of rock around you. So it's an issue in places that have cellars and basements, because the radon levels can become dangerous if it builds up.
Oh, if it's not like a ventilated basement.
Yes.
Because it's a gas. Okay.
So let's say, I don't know, you are in Detroit and you're exploring the old, Chrysler plant from the 1940s. And you go down into the massive cement basement.
With
and
stagnant
you're looking
air.
at stagnant, stale air that all sinks to a low point.
Oh, boy.
And this is, it's built into the ground. It's a basement. And it's been, unventilated for 70 years or whatever. And you're down there and you start seeing shadow people and weird lights and phenomena. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're getting fucking radon poisoning and also probably carbon dioxide's down there too. The point is, don't go into abandoned buildings. Asbestos might be the least of your concerns. So environmental factors.
Well, radon. Okay, so that is a
real thing.
Yeah. So, and that is electromagnetic. That's
It's a gas.
Well, no, but it's a gas.
It's caused by radioactive decay.
Creates radiation.
Yeah.
So ghosts come from radiation. So maybe the ghosts are come out. It's the ghost. It's the ghosts of the rocks.
Yeah. Stone
Rock
tape
ghost.
theory.
Stone
tape. That was what. How does it? What are the rules? How does it work? Well, the stones record it. We've talked about that with
Ghost
stone tape.
stones.
Yeah, right. Stone tape. The idea that a strong enough emotional response will record something into the medium of the stone around you that can then be replayed. Why is it that the only emotional response that does that seems to be somebody's death? Or couldn't we then be recording things into stone all the time with other emotional occurrences? Why aren't there haunted orgasm stones everywhere from people? If it's all about an emotional outburst.
Can we go with some positive ones?
Yeah.
I like the route you're taking with this.
Could there be somebody who was
Orgasm
recorded
stones.
on the stone tape because they had a terrible experience, but they didn't die? So later they returned to that space and they could watch the recording of themselves as a ghost in a place while they're still alive.
Yeah.
Is that a doppelganger? Maybe.
Yeah. you have this is an episode with so many rhetorical questions. I'm gonna have to just start saying yes, Cody. That's what it is.
I know there's rhetorical questions that I keep asking that have no answer, but you have to understand that's how confusing and maddening the world of ghosts apparently is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think because of especially. I know you, and I think the way that you're trying to wrap your head around this from just such a hard science perspective will necessitate that you get into the nitty gritty. So yeah, it sounds like you're very frustrated by this.
You know what else is in that? You know what else is in that basement of that old auto plant? Infrasound.
What's that?
We've talked about infrasound. It's the fear frequency.
Is that the frequency that makes you shit yourself when you?
No,
hear
that's
it?
the brown note, and also doesn't exist. Infrasound.
When did we talk about that? Was that on?
It might have been in EVPs, and I know I've mentioned it a few other times. I think I talked about maybe in a Polterbites
It's
about
the
how
sound that makes you scared.
Yes.
All right, we'll play it now. So, how do you feel, everybody? Did it work?
It's a low frequency that your ears don't normally detect. And how it was discovered was that there was a dude working in I think it was a laboratory that had a reputation for being spooky and haunted. And he noticed that he himself was feeling very uneasy when he worked in a certain part of that building.
And it was a low sound.
Well, he's like, but as a scientist, he's like, I'm going to figure this out. And it turns out that there was an air duct, and it was like he was able to finally measure there's a specific frequency, and then they've recreated this in a laboratory where you play this frequency for people. It won't work over your basic speakers.
Okay.
I mean, you need a really good set of maybe headphones or a really good set of actual speakers to convey this. But your laptop speakers, your car speakers,
it doesn't go low enough.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. So there are YouTube videos where you can experience it for a long period of time, and you don't really get the effects because most headphones are not going to convey it.
Gotcha.
But it does occur naturally. It can occur mechanically. So this was like an AC unit that just the right acoustics created this frequency. But there are certain places on Earth where just maybe the wind blowing through this canyon at the right time of day.
If it's just a frequency,
yeah,
that could happen naturally.
I experienced something like this from wind turbines. And this is actually a thing that gets brought up a lot by people who live close to wind farms will complain about the infrasound. So I was hiking outside of Palm Springs. There's a wind farm down there, and I was hiking up this canyon, and it was hours of going up this canyon. And I know I've told this story somewhere before, but I'm going up the canyon, and for hours, it is this deafening sound of... and it's super loud, and it just kept going and going. And after like an hour of being the only person on this trail up this canyon, I started to get incredibly paranoid.
Wow.
I kept expecting, and I kept thinking that I was seeing out of the corner of my eye. There were people behind the bushes around me, and I turn around, and there's no one there. Ghosts? No, it's the infrasound that is activating parts of my brain. It activates the pareidolia in your brain, so you start seeing patterns that are not. It already makes you uneasy, so your adrenaline starts to flow, and there's a bunch of natural things going on that are priming you for this. Another thing is ghosts are often seen out of your peripheral vision.
Oh,
it's
okay.
like usually like, I saw movement out of the corner of my eye, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you have excellent color vision if you are somebody with color vision. I'm sorry, people who are colorblind, but
you don't
as a general,
yeah.
Looking straight on, your vision actually is more adept at seeing colors and definition from that, because I think it has more cones in that direction.
Oh, okay.
Your peripheral vision has more rods, which sees less color.
That's contrast, light and
but
dark.
it detects movement. And it's
Oh,
an
okay.
evolutionary thing from our primate past of watching out for predators. Is you're looking ahead of you all the time.
You don't need to know the exact color of a flower.
You don't need to know what
corner of
color the
your
tiger
eye.
is. You just know there's something big and it's moving over there.
Interesting.
Add that to pareidolia and your brain's readiness to see patterns, you start getting false reports. Basically, your brain is glitching out and it's like, there's a person there, and then you turn and they're gone.
I mean, I think everybody experiences that.
Yeah.
You see something out of the corner of your eye. What was that? Nothing.
So there are natural things that can make you see ghosts.
Yeah.
But then when people are trying to find justifications for it because they don't easily accept it, like, hey, your brain glitched out, this is what happened. It's like, no, it was a ghost, and I'm going to tell you why it was a ghost.
Yeah.
There was infrasound. Okay, yes, exactly. They go, no, you don't understand. Infrasound is the sound ghosts make, dude. That's what they sound like.
I like that.
Right? You're like, no, you've got it backwards, you know?
Cause and effect?
No, there's a lot more. We got to move on just for time. There's a lot of other things that we could get into about, like, and there'll be future episodes going into specific pieces of ghost hunting equipment because those rely on certain rules of ghosts.
Yeah.
And that's a broader conversation. Another one is, like we said, auras earlier. Talking about auras, when they discovered quote-unquote oral photography in the past.
Aural, not oral.
Yeah, aural.
It's a different kind of photography.
Yes. One is a lot sexier than the other. The idea that you could visualize or catch on film the electrical fields around objects and individuals. Mm-hmm. This is a thing that can be done. Mm-hmm. But then people said, well, now you're taking pictures of the soul. That is the soul around you.
Uh-huh.
Right?
That's the aura.
That's where it gets into pseudoscience. So that was something I was going to get into, but that's a whole nother episode entirely. But an example of when accepted science is misconstrued by people to justify other things. Now, am I saying everybody who has seen a ghost or experienced a ghost didn't see something?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already explained the way that, like, I myself, and I don't think I've ever told this story, once had an experience walking down the creek trail along the old railroad route at the bottom of this canyon. The old trestles still exist, but now they have giant water pipes that go across them where they once had train tracks. Mm-hmm. And I was walking across, next to one down below, and I looked up, and I had the most vivid, like, image movie play out in my head of a woman walking on train tracks getting hit by a train. Like, I saw it as if it was real.
Wow.
And then blinked and nothing was there.
I've never had an experience like that.
Right?
In
It was like a hallucination or
Yeah.
just like a weird daydream that I had.
I
And
mean,
it's like-
only
it's like-
you can say.
Yeah,
Was
and it
there
was-
a difference?
But here's the thing is, you can look at historical records. No girl was, that would have been big news if a girl had been hit by the train at that time when the train ran. That would have been a noteworthy thing. I could find no records of such a thing happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe somebody was hit by a train, the train conductor didn't notice, then a barrier, and then no one knew what happened to her.
Stand by me.
Yeah. So...
I am more inclined to believe that my brain, I am a person who likes stories. I like to tell stories.
And you're a very creative, you have an active imagination.
In fact, the way I remember so much stuff is I am a visual learner. When I'm reading things, I see it in my head. And that's how I remember it, is I just replay the video, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think I saw the ghost of a girl getting hit. And if I did, people would categorize that as they'd say that was a time slip, which is another way ghosts supposedly work, is what if we're not actually seeing the souls of somebody who's dead? We're actually seeing through time, where the weird little wave of time has bumped into each other and now it overlaps. If that was true, then why don't they see me as well as I see them? And how come we never see anybody from the future, only the past? And in most cases, why is it only the individual and not everything around them? You don't see, like, you know, the trees, or you don't see the cupboard that they used to have before the house is remodeled. You see the person. That's kind of weird. You know?
Yes.
Anyway, I don't want to detract from the fun that people have. I think that just because you know how an optical illusion works doesn't mean you can't enjoy the illusion.
I very much agree with you there.
You know, if you went to every stage magician show and believed that they were really making a tiger disappear through magic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. But also saying, like, hey, somehow they pulled off that trick. That's cool. I enjoy that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that seems, you know, magic is an easy answer. It's more exciting to wonder how they practically did the thing, right? Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, yeah, maybe if you saw a ghost,
yeah,
I'm not going to call somebody a liar. I am more inclined to say, okay, you did see something. I personally don't believe it was a ghost.
Yeah.
It was something else, which is equally interesting and fun.
Yeah.
It's still cool that
Well,
your brain can be tricked in such a way.
And, you know, I mean, we've been doing this show for 110 episodes or something like that at this
This is
point.
112.
I don't believe in ghosts myself, but, you know, I don't know what all is out there. I mean, I'm always... I'd rather say I'm agnostic than atheist about things like this, but let's say we lived in a world with ghosts. If we lived in that world, I think if you were to see a ghost, you probably would have an explanation that wasn't that it was a ghost.
If I saw something that I thought was a ghost now,
Yeah, if you saw a ghost,
I would actually try to interact.
oh, of course you would. Yeah.
I was watching a video.
But look, like
Okay,
let's say you saw a ghost walking around right up the hillside for a few seconds, and you try to interact and it's gone.
Yeah.
You, I imagine, would have some explanation other than that it's a ghost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Occam's razor would tell me
Yeah.
that there's other explanations beyond the
And my only point there
worldview.
is that yeah, I mean, whether or not ghosts are real, it depends on what you think you're seeing. So
Yeah, and also the idea that they all reflect the cultures that shape them.
yeah,
That's one thing that I just keep going back to, is like, depending on where you are, and what cultural group, and when, the rules for what a ghost is are different. There's some commonalities. I mean, if you drew the Venn diagram, somebody would probably point to the middle and go, well, that's what a ghost is. Like, but then why all the other stuff as well?
yeah.
In certain parts of Japan, ghosts don't have legs. But in other parts, all you see are the legs. What's up with that?
The one I like, and correct me if I'm wrong, people who listen to this who might know, but I believe that part of the Japanese tradition with ghosts is that they can't say the same thing twice. So on the
There's
phone,
what? Oh,
you
mushi,
say
mushi.
mushi mushi. You say it twice.
Yeah.
To prove that you're not a ghost, because a ghost couldn't say mushi and then mushi again.
What if it's two ghosts next to each other and one is mimicking the other
Oh
one's
my
voice?
gosh, you're right. I had never thought about that.
'Cause that's another
Ghosts could
thing-
double up.
That's another thing that is like becoming the hot new ghost of 2020. It started in 2023 through 2024, like the hot one right now.
Yeah.
Mimics, dude. It's all about mimics.
Oh.
They copy your voice. They'll knock on your door in the middle of the night and sound like somebody who, like, they'd sound like Kelly, but then you look and Kelly would be in bed.
What? Oh, that
Yeah,
would freak
that's
me
the new hotness that's spreading the internet. I watched a video, and this is going to segue into how ghosts work on film.
Yeah.
I watched a video that was a nighttime janitor in a high school, and the backstory was that this high school was built on top of an old cemetery, but they backed it up because the actual hallway has framed photographs of headstones, and then above the lockers are like mounted pieces of headstones. Like they
Oh.
I guess are celebrating that this school was built on an old cemetery, which is wild to me.
Right on. Wow.
Anyway, the guy is like explaining how he's cleaning up a room where they had a party and there's balloons in there, and he goes in the room and displays that there's like one balloon in a corner that's by itself, and there's a whole bunch of other balloons.
Yeah.
The balloon in the corner starts to float towards him, and then nothing else is moving. It's like there's no other air currents.
Must
and then
be a
he,
ghost.
And then he leaves the room, and the balloon still comes out into the hallway, right?
Wow.
And then beyond the balloon, he sees a shadow run past the door, and his response is just, nope, I'm out. And he leaves, right? Now, I was the nighttime janitor at a supposedly haunted school, and I always hoped that I would see something.
Yeah.
Because if I was
you
that
would have
guy,
been so excited.
if that balloon was coming towards me, my response would be like, all right,
finally,
here we go.
I'll have a spooky check I can talk about in the next
let's
episode.
see what happens next, you know?
Yeah, I would love to see
what happens
that
if I pop the balloon.
Oh, that... I would be I would try so many things before that. I wouldn't want to upset the ghost. The ghost is like happily walking. Oh, I got a balloon, and then the janitor pops it.
Well, there's a whole bunch of other balloons. But then the thing is to watch the other set of balloons. If a new balloon is selected and starts behaving on its own.
It could be that ghost has such a intangibility that it's been trying to grab the balloon for hours and finally got a grasp on it, and then you pop it, now it's to start over.
Which brings us to how ghosts work in film.
How ghosts work in film. This is Garth's Corner. I took some Benadryl for this cough. Oof. I made a podcast, but I ran out of content and form. I paid a pro cent peppermint to sign off on this consent form. Oh, but here's what I want to know. How do ghosts work? I want to know how ghosts work. In this Garth's Corner, I'll make my throaty frog work. Froaky frog, my froggy throat. Make your froggy throat work. Make your froggy throat work. Make your froggy throat work. Hey everybody, this is Garth's Corner. Welcome to Garth's Corner. So I was thinking about a couple different movies that have like pretty specific rules. One being Beetlejuice, the original. And then you mentioned Ghost, which I don't remember all the rules to, but I do remember.
Ghost.
I remember that Whoopi Goldberg's in it, and she gets possessed by what's his name?
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze, and they make out. I remember that scene. That's the only scene I remember from Ghost.
Oh, you mean with the pottery wheel?
Yeah. There's the pottery wheel.
Okay.
Too.
I thought you meant the Whoopi Goldberg and Swayze make out.
No, Whoopi Goldberg makes out with Patrick Swayze's wife.
It's implied.
Oh, they don't show it?
That was actually one of the critiques that Roger Ebert had about it.
He wanted to see it?
He's like, that implies that Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore kissed.
They do. Do they not do that in the movie?
What happens is they dance. He turns into Whoopi Goldberg and they dance together. And then at the end, when he's going through the light, he's able to actually interact with her because he's there.
The only thing
brain
I remember about that movie is Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore making out on a couch. That never happened in the movie.
Never happens.
Wow, the implication from that movie is the only memory I have of that movie. Anyway, so in that one,
he's trying to solve his murder.
Yeah, ghosts can possess people's bodies if
let's
the person's
go through the
okay
rules.
with it.
Here we go.
That's the rules. Okay, the rules of ghosts. We'll start with that. You remember this movie better than I do.
He dies through a violent means. He's murdered.
Right.
That's why he's going to go through the light, and then he sees his girlfriend or his wife, and it's like, oh, and then
never mind.
And then apparently the door closes. Like, no, dude, you only had like 30 seconds to get through. You're done. You're stuck on Earth now. But then he wants to solve his own murder, and then he realizes that his wife is in danger from the person that murdered him.
Yeah.
And so then he goes to Whoopi Goldberg because she's a psychic, but she's actually like a charlatan. But she's not, because he's actually a real ghost that shows up, and then it's trying to convince Demi Moore that he's a ghost. But then he learns how to interact with the physical world from another ghost, an angry spirit on a subway.
Get off my train!
See, I don't remember any of this movie.
That guy's scared. No, I remember being a kid watching. This came out in 1990, so I would have been 5.
Yeah, I was.
And it was the number one selling video cassette in 1991, as well as the highest rented movie of 1991.
Wow.
This movie was watched by my mom many times as a child, and it fucking scared me. The dude who is the vengeful ghost on the subway, you would recognize him right away because he's in a lot of other movies. And
character actor
that has a very distinct kind of, he's sunken in eyes, a long face. He kind of looks like Christopher Lloyd's darker photocopied clone that got stretched out a bit.
Okay.
You'll have to see him later. You'll recognize
Okay.
him. Just pretend you're dating her. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I remember who you're talking about.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
But yeah, no, he's like a vengeful ghost on a subway that can throw things around. He's basically like a poltergeist rules. And then Patrick Swayze's like, well, if I'm going to catch my killer and protect my wife, I got to, learn how to throw down as a ghost. And so he goes and that guy teaches him, like, you focus all of your attention and energy and you can, like,
see, ghosts have to learn how to move things. And it
Which
takes
is like Casper
time and
rules.
skill.
Apparently Casper had to go to Boo School.
In order to move material objects in the world?
Yes.
Very interesting.
Which is also the handbook for the recently deceased in Beetlejuice.
They
have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, and that was going to be what I'll... Do you have any more to say about ghosts?
Only that after he solves his unfinished business...
Then he gets to go into the light, I think.
Yeah, by figuring out, spoilers, that it is his old business partner who had him killed. And then there's a whole plot where the business partner becomes aware that he's a ghost because as a ghost he steals money from his business partner, and then business partner holds Demi Moore hostage to a ghost.
I was about to say it's like Bob Cratchit, but Scrooge didn't have Bob Cratchit killed.
Yeah,
that would have been a really weird
So at this
twist.
point he's like, hey, Patrick Swayze ghost, I've got Demi Moore and I'm gonna kill her. That's making her a ghost and joining you. Unless by tonight you, Whoopi Goldberg, get me $4 million because you stole $4 million from me. And then that guy gets dragged to hell by angry shadow demons.
Oh.
The movie was directed by Jerry Zucker, one of the directors of the movie Airplane. It was the first movie that was a non-comedy that he directed.
Wow.
And apparently he changed the script because he was a listener to Dennis Prager of PragerU, conservative media dude, and became convinced that the movie needed a moral lesson as well as just a story about ghosts and romance.
And that was the dragging to hell at the end part?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Beetlejuice. So this is one that I do know well. So yeah, there's a handbook for the recently deceased, and they have to learn how to be ghosts.
Yes.
Like they try and they fail, they can't move things.
Oh, not everybody can see the ghosts? Because
only Lydia can see them.
Yeah.
And it's not that people can't see them, it means it's that they won't see them, which is a funny turn of phrase, but interesting.
That's in Discworld, death can only be seen by certain people. Either somebody who has just died sees death. Witches and wizards can always see death. Most people will see death, but their brain will swap something else for it because it's just like
it's too much, man.
It's too much, so they just won't see him. So they'll think, I just talked to a really skinny dude on the side of the road instead of it was death.
That was the best way I could understand what I was seeing. And they can't leave their house. Interestingly, they drown. Their car goes off a bridge and they drown.
Violent death.
And they appear at their doorstep, and they can't leave the house, otherwise they'll go into the desert world with the big worms.
Beetlejuice himself says that is, I think, Titan, like the moon of Titan.
Oh, interesting.
So it's that you get transported to the sands of Titan.
You can go one other place than your house.
But you'll get eaten by sandworms.
Yeah.
I think it's Titan, because he even says, have you been to Titan yet? Sandworms.
We've been to Saturn. Hey, I've been to Saturn.
Dude, no, that's totally a line. That is Titan.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if that will be expanded upon in the sequel. We'll find out, I guess.
Apparently you have to, I think it's implied that you have to die through violent means.
In Beetlejuice?
Yes, and you appear as you did when you died. So since they drown, they look pretty normal.
If they had a bigger budget, they would have been wet all the time.
Yes. But they first show,
they were wet at the beginning.
Yes, and then they dry out.
Yeah.
But every other ghost you see,
every other ghost has like
they're a ghost agent.
Yeah.
She's got a slit throat.
Yeah. There's the guy with the shrunken head.
There's the woman who got cut in half.
I like the flattened guy who is hanging on the line, and he goes.
And he has tread marks on him.
Yeah.
So it seems that you have to die through violent means, and that so it's Mesopotamian rules, and then you appear as you did when you die. Going back to the main topic, sorry. When you die, you should be naked. Do your clothes have a soul?
Oh.
Or are you always going to appear in the clothes that you were in at the time of your death?
In movies, people always appear in the clothes they were in at the time of their death, but maybe they don't want to have a bunch of
I'd argue
people.
the only clothes that have a soul are shoes.
You're right. Okay. So
back to Beetlejuice.
You'd be naked wearing shoes. All ghosts are naked wearing shoes, except for the ghosts.
Maybe not socks. Just no socks. Just fucking shoes and nothing else.
Yep. And except for the ghosts, because half of the ghosts you see don't have legs. They just have little.
Oh yeah.
Little tail with
a shoe on it.
Yeah, with a single shoe. So yeah, in Beetlejuice, they have to learn. I think one of the craziest parts of the movie to me is Daylight Come In, We Want to Go Home, that whole section.
Yeah, they possess them, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid watching that and being like, well, because you never actually see the ghosts making it happen. Mm-hmm. It's just understood that
how do two ghosts play six people like
it's
puppets?
Understood they've been practicing and they can just telepathically move a dozen objects at once together.
Well, they make Lydia fly
people.
later.
Yeah, that's true. And while everything else is jumping around in the house. So you don't see them rushing around doing all of that.
No.
It means they can touch things remotely as ghosts. And they can possess people's bodies, but not their minds, because the people at the dinner party are like scared.
Yeah.
But still going along with it.
Because afterwards it was a fun experience.
Yeah, and then when it's over, everybody's like, "Oh, you've always been a flake. You know, if you want to scare somebody, do it with your sculpture." Like, they're not that bothered that they were all possessed.
Yeah, no. In fact, they immediately turned to how do we make money from it.
Yeah. But yeah, those are all the rules for Beetlejuice.
You can end up
How did Beetlejuice die? Was it like a bubonic plague kind of a thing?
Because
he's like a rotted corpse.
He might be a demon.
You don't think he was ever alive?
Well, he appears initially as a taxi driver, but then he says
He says he lived through the plague.
He had a lot of fun
he's
through the plague. Yeah,
like
he's
hundreds of
very,
years
very
old.
old. Also named after a star.
That's true. Yeah, so if you look at the movie is called Beetlejuice, like a beetle and juice.
Because that's how phonetically you would say it.
But the star is named, it's a
Betelgeuse.
Yeah, it's a different spelling, but it's pronounced Beetlejuice. And so is his gravestone. It's spelled like the star.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if you say Betelgeuse 3 times, does he still show up? Or does it have to be Beetlejuice? And Geist, of course, sounds like Geist, which is the Germanic for ghost.
Beetle ghost. Ghost of a beetle.
Hence poltergeist, noise ghost, or loud ghost.
There you go.
And he is he seems to have poltergeist abilities, but as we've explored before, poltergeists are actually an individual manifesting their psychic will subconsciously on the environment around them in a pattern that does resemble a ghost.
Right.
Those are rules.
Yes.
Then also, they are in their house in limbo. Their ghosts can die a second death.
That's true.
That becomes a thing at the end.
Yeah, if they get exorcised, then they go into the floaty room where the ghosts...
Where the ghost janitor is like, look through this door.
That's right.
Ghost janitor. What the fuck, man?
Poor guy.
But making money off of it, that's their response. Ghostbusters. The movie Ghostbusters.
There you go. Okay. So I know this one pretty well. I think you've seen it way more than me.
Oh man, I used to dress up as a Ghostbuster for Halloween, like on multiple years as a kid. I had all the toys. I was really into Ghostbusters.
So something you brought up, which is a really good question, is like a lot of the ghosts are like not human.
Yeah.
So they're just like monsters that are the ghosts of monsters. Is that the understanding? Or does your, like Slimer? What was Slimer before he was a ghost?
Or does your ghost... Oh, he was Jim Belushi.
Oh, I did. Oh, okay.
Like, that was how they referred to him, like, in the writing rooms. Like, because Jim Belushi had just recently died, and they were all friends with him. Like, he's the ghost of Jim Belushi. That's cool. Why he is just fucking shouting.
You mean John Belushi?
John Belushi.
I was going to say, Jim Belushi was alive, dude.
The wrong brother died.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love that. Oh, hot take.
It's not that hot.
No, I know.
I think that's cold take.
Cold take.
People are all of that opinion. Because one...
I'm excited to see that Saturday Night Live movie. Did you see the trailer?
Oh, yeah. It's just called Saturday Night.
Yeah, it looks good.
But
yeah... okay.
John Belushi, forgive me.
So, with Ghostbusters, they can trap them in the box.
Using proton accelerators. So they're using the Hadron Collider, basically, in miniature. A cyclotron is what it's called. They're using that to somehow create a rope of accelerated photons.
They're not
or protons.
Yeah.
That they can then pull the ghost, which is a massive ectoplasm,
and stick it into a box.
And the box seems to be a little EMF trap. It just sucks up electromagnetic energy and pulls them in.
And the best thing they could think of is to just store them. They can't, they can't destroy them.
Yeah,
but they're like
because energy can't be destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. So it works like exterminators, but I guess they're planning on just continuing to store them in a warehouse indefinitely.
In the containment unit, they call it, which is in their basement, gets shut down by the EPA.
Yeah, the EPA, which are the bad guys in the movie.
Yeah. Again, this movie, I never realized it until much later, is like
It's like a capitalist
libertarian. It's a libertarian dream.
It's
about,
a libertarian.
Like, it's like, yes, Mima's dead, but now we can make money by capturing her ghost because now she's just a monster.
Yeah, the whole movie is a small business
getting
becoming successful, and then regulations come in and destroy all their
pesky
work.
regulations come in to keep them from, falsely imprisoning your relative's soul without a trial and sticking it in a weird void. You get to see it in the cartoon show, and it's just weird, bizarre, like realm of floating bits of land and clouds and shit.
Do they ever figure out what to do with the ghosts? I mean,
no. Well, in the cartoon,
they all get released by the EPA guy.
Yes.
And then,
which means more money for them.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man comes in at the end, and he blows up. But then,
well, the Stay Puft Marshmallow
what happened to all
Man
the ghosts after that?
Is not technically a ghost. It's a demon.
Oh, that's right. He's the demon that came through the gatekeeper and the keymaster. Open up the gate.
Open up the gate, and then the eldritch god, Gozer the Gozerian, comes out. Choose a form.
Right.
Which is funny because they actually do choose a form before that because they're trying to explain the concept to each other. Like, don't think of anything. If you think of Rush Limbaugh, a giant Rush Limbaugh will come. Well, then that's what should have shown up because he just
don't say any down.
Yeah, and then the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man shows up. But yeah, they can be affected by matter. They can affect matter.
Well, and the other thing is ghosts seem to float, and they can fly up and down.
Can throw things around and interact with things.
And they don't they can fall. They can go through walls, but they don't seem to fall through the floor toward the center of the earth.
No.
So they're not really affected by gravity in any way.
When they interact with something physical, they leave behind a slime. That's the ectoplasm.
Was that consistent in Ghostbusters?
It starts at the very beginning when they're in the library and they're looking at the Dewey Decimal card file, and there's snot looking stuff all over.
I think one of the things I always liked the most about Ghostbusters is how much variety they were with all the ghosts. There wasn't a set style for all the ghosts in this movie look like this.
No.
Some are ghosts, some are green, some are somewhat transparent.
Some look more human than others.
Exactly. Some are really scary, some are funny. And then you have demons and stuff that aren't even transparent. The demon dog comes up.
The dogs are very much tangible and real.
Yeah, that was like a gargoyle that gets electrocuted and becomes a...
It was if you remember, it's a gargoyle that was carved intentionally in the image of the demon dogs because the building
was made by
the cult.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I never saw Ghostbusters 2. Cody's brains explode. So, I gave you a worse migraine. I'm so sorry, dude.
Wait.
Sorry.
I don't care about any of the 3 sequels that have, the reboot and then the other 2.
They've done a few in recent years. I haven't seen any of those
that aside, you saw Ghostbusters, but you never saw Ghostbusters 2?
Is it good?
It's all right.
Okay.
I mean, it's on par. It's not as good, but it's not really as bad as everybody says. It's basically a rehash of the first movie in the way that most sequels are. But you get some classic lines and scenes that are just as, iconic.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, there's a courtroom scene where they get put on trial because they're not supposed to be operating, and they do, and they violate the court order they're under, and then there's a ghost fight in a courtroom. That's pretty cool. Giant river of slime. Yeah.
Sounds great. Sounds familiar? Yeah, I've never seen this movie.
Okay, we gotta watch.
Anyway, that has been Garth's Corner for what it was worth, and I'm not sure what it was worth, but
we just talked about some ghost movies,
ghost movies, everybody.
Yeah. So those are just as varied as the rules of real ghosts, apparently, and how ghosts are.
Well, I mean, we explored 3 movies, but I mean, there have been dozens of
so
movies
many.
about ghosts.
Even ghost stories go back. There's a Greek play that has survived to the modern day, ancient Greek play. So it's things like 2,500 years old. Mm-hmm. It's called The Ghost Play.
No.
Or The Ghost Story, various translations. And the gist of it is, young man, his dad's a merchant, goes off to do some business somewhere. While he's gone, young man throws a big house party, Animal House style. He falls in love with a slave girl, takes out an outrageous loan so that he can buy her freedom so he can marry her. He buys a wife. Mm-hmm. It was a different time.
Oh, yeah.
Has this crazy rager, trashes the house, and then suddenly one of his other slaves shows up. It's like, hey, dude, your dad's in the harbor. He's on his way home, bro.
No.
So he's like, stall my dad. And so the slave stands outside. Is like, whoa, hey, dude, I'm glad you're back, man, but you can't go in there. And the dad's like, that's my house. Why can't I go in there? He's like, well, it's totally haunted. There's a ghost in there right now. And he hears a bunch of noise of like things getting slammed around, which is actually them like trying to put the furniture back to normal. He's like, yeah, hear that noise? That's a ghost. And then in the process, a debt collector shows up who's like, well, where's my money? And he's like, oh, you're mistaken. This house didn't take out the loan. It was the neighbor. So then the neighbor gets saddled with the debt. Basically, this is like a stoner teen comedy.
I was going to say, I love your National Lampoon style retelling of this ancient Greek myth about ghosts.
But it's one of the oldest ghost stories in it's one of the oldest ghost stories we have that is presented as a fictional story, not actual no, this is a ghost in our mythology. It was
understood to be a fictional play.
Yes. And it didn't have a real ghost. It was just about somebody basically Scooby-Dooing so that their dad doesn't find out they trashed the house while he was gone.
It's a good plot. That's worth recycling.
Ferris Bueller's Haunted House.
Yeah. I'm sure that's in the public domain by now.
I don't know, man. His ghost is going to come back. He's like, you remember my name? My soul's still here? Look, if
70 years after you forget my name,
if we've established, if contracts and publishing rights live on after you die, right. Mark Twain,
right.
Then, yeah, I don't know how that works.
Well, I think this has been a very fun Cody and Garth talking about what's up with the ghosts.
Yeah, my headache's not as bad as it was before.
Good. You see, you just need more least haunted talk in your life to. Anytime you have a migraine, you got to come over and we'll talk about ghosts for an hour.
It'll be me. It's just me being really salty about ghosts, though.
Yeah, asking lots of rhetorical questions.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I find myself failing to have funny answers to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have enough answers.
Oh no, you're all good. I did my best, but I'm getting over. I haven't slept well, and I've gotten over being sick, so I feel like I wasn't quite as peppy as I normally am. But thank you for bearing with me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's do some housekeeping.
Okay.
Patreon. We want to thank our Monster Squadron Patreon producers.
Hey, producers. You know what? Thank you. In fact, here you are. We'll present you to yourselves now.
Yes. Travis Alexander, By Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, New Jared, Ken with 2 N's, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, Blue Roan, and Tatum.
Hey. Thanks, everybody. Nice. Well, thank you, all of y'all out there. We really love you.
But on the subject of Patreon, this is a PSA.
Oh, yes. Very important, everybody.
Yes. So, Apple is being a dick to Patreon in that if you download the Patreon app through Apple iOS or Apple's App Store, their app storefront, if you have their version of the Patreon app, Apple is going to start demanding 30% of every pledge that you make on Patreon be paid to them on top of the 3 to 5% that Patreon takes.
So you $10 a month, guys, 3 of those dollars would just go to Apple if you have if you've become our patron through your phone. But to circumvent this and get around it so that the money goes to us, which would be nice. You can just do it on your desktop.
Go to your browser on your desktop.
Don't do it on your phone.
And sign up through there. Now, this isn't going to take effect until November of this year. Yeah. So if you want to join up now on your Apple app, now is the time, because they're going to basically grandfather clause in all the pre-existing ones.
I was about to ask about that. If people who already did this on the app need to become not patrons, then patrons again on their desktop.
If you are already a patron, good to know. You are already covered, and nothing's going to change.
I have a Patreon. I give some money to a couple different people, so I don't need to do anything.
No, okay. That'll just roll over and be protected. It's any new ones starting in November.
Okay.
Who do it through the app. They get 30 fucking percent to do nothing.
That's crazy greedy of Apple. I can't believe that they...
I kind of can.
I mean, yeah, what am I saying? I can believe it, but I'm surprised. I think there will be a lot of backlash to this. That's a lot.
So that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once November comes around, when we mention Patreon at the beginning, we'll say, make sure if you want to be our patron, do it through your web browser on your laptop.
Yeah.
Or on your computer.
That was the housekeeping I had. If you want to send us mail, P.O. Box 22, Redwood Estates, California, 95044. You can send us haunted items or fan mail if you want to do the old school way of doing it. Otherwise, you can just email us, leasthauntedpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah.
That's all of the things I can think of.
Oh, Tumblr. We have our Tumblr. We have
a gnome. We have a tumble gnome.
Yeah, Tumble Gnome.
Who tumbles around and posts pictures related to each episode and information and reposts fun things.
Yeah, so if you follow us on Tumblr, you will see the Tumble Gnome's work.
Yes, we don't have a lot of social medias at the moment, but that is one.
Yes.
You can follow us on.
That in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it.
That's everything. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
I think next time we actually might have a guest.
Oh, really?
We're going to be talking about some alien cats.
Okay. So we'll have an alien cat expert in 2 weeks. We'll see you then, everybody.
All right. So, yeah, until then, remember, the only thing that's haunted
is you. That was my impression of a ghost.
Oh, that's something just like infrasound. That's all I heard.
Laughing at you.
Say goodbye.
The problem with you is you still think you're real. You think you're wearing those clothes? You think you're crouched on that floor? Bullshit! You ain't got a body no more, son. It's all up here now. You want to move something, you gotta move it with your mind. You gotta focus. You hear what I'm saying? How? How do you focus? I don't know how you focus. You just focus.
The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience and is a presentation of Sequoidea Productions, LLC.